Everyone, welcome to the Musicians Insider. I'm your host, Kronis, and today I have a very special guest. We have Matt Starr, the man with Ringo's last name. I love it. One of the best
So-
drummers we know, life coach, for musicians, a musician's coach, and a session musician who I've been happy to say I got to work with. Really, really great drummer. So, Matt, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good, man. It's good to see you.
So, touring, are you in any tours coming up right now? Or are you basically off for the moment, or what are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, I've been doing more shows lately. I've been doing more traveling. So, like just one-offs here and there, filling in for buddies, and been doing a bunch of clinics on the heels of that. So, if I have a thing out, like I have a thing in Seattle in a couple weeks, so I'm gonna go do a clinic at Revival Drum Shop in Oregon. Then I'll go down to LA and do some sessions. So I try and make a whole trip out of it.
Right on. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me today. Obviously, you're one of the more experienced musicians I've had on Musicians Insider here, so I'd love to get some, just, any advice or tips you might have for artists who are probably similar to me, trying to make things happen, but trying to figure this world out, especially with all the technology and all the changes. And like, I love the way you are now able to record drums for anyone anywhere, and then you also provide
Right.
Matt Starr coaching, which I'll put a link to for that. But there are some things I wanted to ask about. Like, for example, I think it's really cool how your ability to basically train someone to become a sideman for a band somewhere. You can help someone become an artist that can then, get out there, meet people, and just understand the industry and start working for real instead of just playing in their basement. And I know that's what you teach, but from my perspective, I'm curious to know, do you have advice for people who may want to actually be the franchise artist themselves, which is kind of like what I'm trying to do, where like we don't want to be in someone else's band. We want to be the artist. And there's a big difference between that because I could probably play guitar for someone and have a lot of, gigs that way, but it's not my music and I don't want to do that. So that's where
Right.
my conundrum really comes in. I want to do it all, right? But it's like you have to climb the ladder. So I thought I'd ask you just a bit about that and see what else you have to say and just have a little chat.
Yeah, totally. I think probably about half of my clients are people that are looking to work as hired guns, and then the other half are artists, like you. So, the process is really the same. I think the level of responsibility is greater for sure on someone who's the artist, right? But the steps are pretty much the same, minus the creative component, right? So it starts with getting really clear on what the goal is. And that sounds obvious, but a lot of guys, it's like, well, I want to make it. It's like, okay, well, define that. What does that mean? Because sometimes I'll talk to somebody and I'll say, okay, so you want to be on tour, 250 days a year. And they go, oh, no, 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 not that. And I go, okay, so let's define that. So getting really clear on what that is, because that will inform what decisions you make and what things you say yes to, right? I'm not an advocate of saying no to anything. I'm an advocate of saying yes to everything, but just saying yes to the right things, you know? And so getting clear on what the goal is, that's number one. And then two, the very next question is, who do I know that's already doing that? And if someone, again, wants to be like a self-sustaining artist or wants to be a hired gun and they're like, yeah, I want to play, let's just say I want to play amphitheaters around the US. Okay, do you have anyone in your phone who's doing that? No. Okay, that's a huge problem, right? Because that's like me going, I want to work at Walmart. Do I know anyone who works at Walmart? No. Okay, and imagine you couldn't go into Walmart and submit an application. How would I get that gig? Best way, go meet the guy at who's working in the tools department of Walmart and going, hey dude, what's your name? Like, let's go out, let's hang. That
And
sounds kind of funny, but
well, I'm just what you're saying, shop there. Like go there. Like if you're going to try to work
yeah,
there, you need to shop there and understand that place.
right,
Let's like saying you want to play a
right,
show at a bar, go to that bar, frequent it, know the staff, know the patrons so that when it's your turn, it's going to happen for you. I've felt like this problem a lot because I live out of the city. I can't just go to the bars I want to play at because I'm 2 hours away. So it's kind of hard. So that's an interesting part to that. Sorry.
yeah, for sure. And I think the other thing too, a lot of times people want to have a career in music, but they have this other life that is mostly not based around music. And I'm also not an advocate. Like, I have people that have come to me and said, okay, start working with them one-on-one, and they have a full-time job that pays their bills. And they go, should I quit my job? I'm like, no, do you want to add the stress of not being able to pay your electric bill? Like, that's not going to help. I want you to create so much work and so many opportunities. You don't have time for your, say, 9 to 5 job, whatever that might be. And also financially, you don't need it. Right. So, like, again, I'm not into saying no to stuff. So sometimes people think, well, I'm going to just quit my job and tell the universe I'm ready to rock. And it's like, let's pay your bills. Let's not add that stress. It's like, what are the positive actions that increase and create the opportunity? And so, yeah, someone might feel like, okay, I want to be this touring musician. Okay, do you know anyone who tours? No. Okay, so you have this life that's centered around your job and that world. This has to be your world, right? And so the networking piece is a huge thing. And I you know, not struggled, but like, what do we call this when you go out and meet people? It's
Networking.
networking. I know musicians hate that. It sounds, to some people, it sounds gross. Marketing is another one that sounds worse, but it's like letting people know what you do. And marketing isn't like, hi, would you like to have a great sounding record? Hire me, Matt Starr. It's like, hey, dude, you sounded great. What's going on? What's happening with your band? Boom, boom, boom. Let's go out for coffee, connect, talk, da, da, da. I don't know. Our drummer, we're in the studio. He's kind of a hard time. Well, listen, man, if you need help, let me know. That's marketing, right? That's musician marketing. But like, we have to do these things, and everyone has their own way of doing it. Some people are very direct and kind of traditional, like, hey, here's my card. And that's okay. And other guys are like, hey, bro, hey, listen, man, if I can help, just hit me up, man. I'm around. Like that tone. You got to find what works. But if you want to be part of this business, you have to be part of the business. Like, that has to be your world. And you can have both worlds. You can have a part-time job or even a full-time job. There's plenty of people I work with. They have a steady gig, and then they also make music because they don't want to tour, but they want to create music. And so then they're placing music in television and film, and that's really fulfilling for them. Or they may have a lesson. You have a guy who's in Ohio, he's got like 42 students, and that's his thing. That's his dream, and he's doing it. You know what I mean? So you can, whatever, however you define it, you can have that goal, but you've got to be immersed in the industry and the specific aspect of the industry that
Very
you want to be
cool.
part of.
Interesting. So, for me, I started this podcast, Musicians Insider, so I could do something in the music industry aside from, playing as in bands and whatnot. I've joined the Toronto DIT community, which I was going to recommend you to check out. DIT, Do It Together community. It's
Cool.
Toronto-based networking, and we should get you on as a speaker somewhere. It'd probably be awesome. I'll introduce you to Daryl if you like, if you have time. I just think it's a good thing to join a Toronto-based sort of music community that's global as well, because we're learning that
Right.
the Canadian artists really having trouble making it unless they're international. Like, you have to go and apply for grants at other conferences in like Australia and in South by and things like that, because if you don't, the Canadian industry really can't float you. Like, it's just not big enough. And,
Interesting. Yeah.
and I mean, there are domestic deals and things. So it's that's interesting. And there's a lot more on that we could talk about. But I think, like, for me too, I have a new plan. Like, since I've talked to you a bit about things to do, try to get advice. I'd love your advice on what you think I should do, but I know I have to just do the work. So what I've come up to now is that my motto has kind of always been one song at a time. I used to have that on my business card. So now what I'm doing, I think this is interesting. I love your feedback, is I'm going in the studio every Friday and I'm working with a producer, and I've got a bunch of new songs, and we've actually got a drummer who's coming in with me now too. Younger guy's learning, and I think we're gonna have another guitar player. So it's gonna be a three-piece. One song is almost done, and as soon as we have three songs in the can, we're gonna continue this process, but we're gonna start releasing them on a 10 to 12 week basis. So it's an ongoing thing. I release a song every 12 weeks or every 10 weeks and just do another one every 12 weeks. So I'm not like spending my whole next 5 years on I'm Not Sorry. You know what I mean? Which is the song I did like
Right.
4 years ago, and it's still the song I did a video for and all that money. It's like, well, I need to keep pumping out new tunes, because that was supposed to come out in 2020. It doesn't really do anything for me now other than it looks good for when I'm trying to sell my back catalog and things like that. So it looks great, but
Right.
cold product, you got to keep going. So that's
Totally.
that's what I'm trying to do is and interestingly, and you said to do this, take your music, get feedback from people. So I've got a really good connect to. I can't wait to hear his feedback. I sent stuff to Jay, my friend Jay Rustin, and I talked to him about who should I get to master these things. I was asking those types of questions because I don't
Hmm.
know. Some people don't know that, like, you mix something and then you master it, but some people lie to you and tell you they're mixing and mastering at the same time when it's not true. They're just lying. So
Right.
like, you need to have that separate step. So I'm trying to find the people in the industry who know how to do things the best. Like I try to get the best drummers, I try to get the best programmers, the best guys. So I just finished this track and I sent it to Parker from Excellent Sound because he's produced my last record and he's going to do the drop and the EDM parts. But I'm not in his studio. I can't really afford to fly to LA and have him do all this stuff. So I'm going to do it here, but I'm not compromising my sound thanks to the technology that we have with Zoom and the ability to do things like, like you've been doing too, doing drum tracks. So that's exciting. So that's what I'm trying to do. I just wanted to fill you in a bit because I think it's kind of neat to know where
Yeah,
we're at. And my
that's
plan is
great.
to release something every 10 to 12 weeks and not live off of one single. Every single is a single every 10 to 12 weeks. And I have an album with 10 singles.
Right.
And then we name it after 10 tracks. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'd love any, feedback on things other people should do, or if you have any thoughts on that. But also I don't have a bunch of chat GPT questions for you because that's just not how we do this. We have a conversation, we talk about what makes sense, and I'd love to hear more what you have to say on any of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just did a course, social media for pro musicians. And, what I talk about is to think about your own scrolling habits, right? So I could scroll, and you got about 3 seconds. Sometimes you got like one, right? Like just the image. So, and audio has to have a video component, right? It has to. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be anything. I just some tracks I put out last year and I was like putting it off because I'm like, oh, well, I don't have video. I said, what's one of the lyrics? It's about leaves on the ground. I went out in the backyard. It was the fall, and I just like videoed the ground, and it was kind of weird and creepy. And I made it like kind of, I kind of blew out the colors a little bit. And I was like, great, done.
Content.
Put it up and like it moved forward. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be a big project. You can do it on your phone because the reality is people are going to be looking on their phone. And so but if you think about the content that you end up watching, even if it's like your friends, like, hey, man, I just got a new single, you'll probably go click and you'll listen and go, dun, 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 dun. Hey, it's a good one. Hey, cool, man, like the riff. Swipe,
And you're
swipe
not
back.
even
There you
listening
go.
to the whole thing, and it's your friend.
Right.
So
So,
when it's
so
someone you
that's
don't
just,
know,
yeah, that's just the way it is, So come up with stuff that is really engaging and looks different too. Right. So like I'll post videos like, hey, here's clip me at studio. If you want to make a record, let me know. But I realized that my clips, like my camera, my phone is in the same place every time. So just your eyes, if you follow my pages, you just see, oh, there's another one. Do a different angle. Make it black and white. Go widescreen. Do you have a different bass drum you can use? Do you, if you're in a different studio, definitely get more footage. So like you can use the same kind of content, but it's got to be varied because again, our eyes just get used to seeing stuff,
now that
and if it
said,
sees the same thing and the algorithm does the same thing too.
but that said, yeah, it totally does. But that said, people will also maybe start to recognize your look if you have a distinct sort of thing you always do as well. There's that too. Like on TikTok, for example, like the guy who's always looking at the construction, it fails, things like that. There's like, or there's somebody who's going, no way, like those kind of things. Like they're consistently doing the same thing that people now recognize. So, and TikTok is changing music because the labels are paying attention to it first. If you're not doing well on TikTok, your Spotify number. It's a weird thing. I've been sort of researching this lately, how they care. And because of that,
Right.
you kind of have to write a song not at 1 minute. What happens at that 1 minute 30 point? Like, is it loopable? And is that something you're thinking about? And that's annoying. There's
Well, and
that.
but it's always been that way. I mean, you listen to a song from the 70s and there's like a minute long intro, and it's like that's just not the case anymore. I mean, I think like around the 90s, I mean, there were songs like this in occasionally earlier days, but like it's just boom, like first thing you hear is a lead vocal on the verse. And it's like, yeah, because life is happening quicker. And with TikTok too, like that guy with you're talking about the construction fails, you see his face, you go, oh, I'm gonna laugh because last time I watched this, I laughed. Click, right? But if I'm saying like, hey, here's my new song, and I'm like, why do I need your new song? Like, tell me something, you know? You know, my dog passed away 2 years ago, and I've had a really hard time processing, but I finally wrote this song, and if it could help somebody, like, tell me a story. Even just talk about one lyric or how you came up with the title or a funny thing, like pull me in at the end of it. it all goes back to you, right? So if it's like you're posting something, you're like, this is my favorite skateboard and it broke a year and a half ago when I fell off a thing in Venice Beach. Okay, that's a good story. Exactly. That's something that would be, unfortunately, of more interest to somebody than, hey, here's my new song. But if you pull me in with that story, cool. All roads lead back to you.
Yeah,
All
you can't
roads lead back to, as I'm reading it, I'm hearing your music, right?
you
So
can't
like,
even say it's in my new song anymore because they'll skip it. Like
right.
you can't say that. You know, you can't really give any marketing speak at all in your posts. You cannot say go get my buy this. Like that's all just death to your scroll. Like anything to do with get my new this, get that doesn't work. So
People don't want to be sold to, again, you've seen those commercials like how to not be your parents, and the guy like is training people how to not be their parent. That's is it Prudential? It's an insurance
it's
company, but like the
insurance.
insurance company, and then they got Jake from State Farm, and they got all these basketball players. Like it's on in the insurance business, right? Like those guys are, but what do those commercials have to do with insurance?
It's a story. They
But
want your
they
attention.
just they need to get your attention, right? So it can't be like, you know, are you looking for a great, sensible solution for your family meals? It's got to be some story. And then in the end, the mom comes up with a great way to feed the kids and everyone's happy.
So I think what we're basically saying is that it's marketing eyes are hard to achieve, and nowadays, in order to get that, you got to really look at TikTok and look at what gets your attention and create the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Think like that. Think like that. And I think that can be a challenge. There's a certain amount of musicians, artists who go, yeah, but why, it shouldn't be like, okay, go to therapy and process that shit, or just get out of the business because it is the way it is, bro. Right? So like I just was listening to a Kinks album that I got, kind of
Nice.
Kinks from 1965. It's a mint copy, first pressing, blah blah blah. But the reality is when someone sends me music or I produce something, I send them, we're sending Dropbox files. Like I enjoy that. So in my spare time, when I'm having an espresso and listening to a record, no, I don't want to listen to an MP3. I'm going to listen to a record. I'm going to look at the credits. I'm going to research. But where we are now is this. And thank God you're up in Canada. I'm down here, and we're talking. It's awesome.
I love
So
it.
just accept what's going on at the moment and work within that. Work within that. Be an artist in the studio. Make decisions from emotion when you're writing lyrics. But when it comes to the business or the marketing or whatever, leave all that stuff aside. It can have your feel, it can have your vibe. So if Neil Young is, they're putting out, Neil Young is going to put out a thing, that's going to have a different tone than if, Slipknot is. So it'll have their feel in the branding part of it. But this is not a time to be, emotional or have opinions about stuff. It's just like get your stuff out there. And back in the 70s, it was, hey, we're gonna send the record company guy with a mountain of cocaine and a bunch of cash, and they're gonna take the radio station out for the best night of their life, and then they're gonna play the song. And the artist is just like, yeah, cool, dude, whatever, whether it's James Taylor or Kiss. It's like, how do we get this thing out there? That system that has changed over the years. And like you said, it used to be Spotify. Now it's TikTok. It's moving so fast. You got to educate yourself and don't fight it. Just make great music. And then how it gets out there, you got to just stay up on top of that.
And there's no point in complaining about people like Jay-Z buying the charts for Beyonce. There's no point. They like the Beyonce's country album went number 1 on the country chart, and that seems weird. And I heard he was payola, and I think that's disgusting. And I don't even want to care too much about the country charts, but it's interesting that that is something that is now a discussion that's still happening. When like I don't understand how to get on the terrestrial radio other than I know that if you're touring and you're playing shows everywhere and you're promoting and buying advertising, that's probably how you're going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things. The business is changing, right? Terrestrial radio is going away, 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 away. Okay, fine. But there's been payola since the 50s. You know what I mean? So like, again, I saw a posting because I'm part of some songwriter groups because I like to see, as far as my coaching, I like to see what the struggles are because one, I'm not an artist anymore, right? I may do a record at some point in the future, but I don't really identify as an artist. So I want to hear like what are the challenges that they're facing so I can address them and help where I can. And someone was talking about that, like, oh, I was talking to somebody who said they could get me played on a bunch of radio stations in the college market, but they charge like $1,500. It's like, yeah, that's called a radio campaign, but they were outraged by this. And I'm like, okay, so that's been going on forever. All that, so again, just get over it. But the other part of it is there's still nothing like a relationship. There's still, so like to your point, you go play in, Detroit, Michigan, and you stop by the radio station and you bring them a pizza and a plate of chocolate chip cookies, and you're like, hey man, I want to invite you guys to the show. And, you should have already done some groundwork ahead of time actually to say hi. But then like show up and like they're people. So at least they're gonna go, what a cool guy. Like develop that relationship. That there's always an exception. Always. So if you're at the counter at the airline ticket counter, or you're on phone with customer service, like, how can you get what you want? And that's something I've learned just aside from music, but just someone, you call customer service. I don't want to call. They don't want to answer. You can tell by the phone prompt, they don't even want you to get through. And it's like, oh, this is David. How can I help you or whatever? Like, hey, David, how you doing? My name's Matt. How's your day? And they're always like, oh, good. Thanks for asking. What can I help you with?
Well,
So here's the thing. Now, I could be totally pissed off about something, but like, that's not going to get me what I want. I want to get whatever the deal is, my refund or whatever is going on with customer service. So like, what's going to get you the results you want? And that's what I talk about, like in the art department, the creation department, be the artist. Absolutely. On the marketing and the branding and the blah, 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 all that stuff, just do what's going to get you the result.
I mean, I'm hiring a graphic designer and a brand person because I am a marketer, but I can't do that stuff. I don't have the energy to do it right. I've got a team that I'm going to release with, but we have a whole what to do for every single, like all these documentation. We're going to use the Believe platform. I have a whole YouTube strategy of best practices, and it's hard. It's a full-time job. Like for me, thank God I work remotely. I'm a digital marketer I'm an SEO director remotely. But if I was like driving to an office every day, like I used to in LA when I first started doing this stuff, trying to figure out how to be remote and learning everything, like it won't happen. So you have to be all in. I'm all in where I'm remote. I can travel, I can be a musician, and I just work on my laptop in between gigs. I just don't have the music done and out, and I'm not doing that. But that's my plan. I'm not quitting no day job. I'm keeping it as long as I can. And if
Yeah.
I ever can be doing music, I'll probably still keep all the digital stuff going unless we're making enough money that we don't have to worry about it. But that's like get a job that allows you to do your music. And the internet has now allowed that. It took me 20 years. I tried to work at Nortel remotely and I had a remote dock, but I still had to go to work. It sucked.
Right. Well, and I think the other challenge for music for up and coming artists, and I know this from experience, and I still
Mhm.
hear about it, is you've got to get a team together. Now, I did a post about a month or two ago. I keep getting notifications because people keep responding to it, and it's how to know if you're in the wrong band. And what I suggested was look at the people in your band. Imagine that band ends tomorrow. In 5 years, do you see them doing anything noteworthy? Anything, or are they going to just keep being in bands like this and going? And if you don't say at least one of them is going to do something great, you're probably in the wrong band. Now, a lot of people were like, yeah, I mean, guys like Jason Hook, from Five Finger was like 100% bro, like cats like that are actually living a career playing original music were like right on, great. And then it was the bulk of the people that were like, yeah, this is so great. A lot of people said, wow, I wish I kind of thought about this earlier, or it took me a long time to realize what you're saying. And then the people that get really mad are the people that haven't had any success. And they're like, that's not how you do it. And they, you're talking about being a solo artist or being by yourself. I said, no, I'm talking about being surrounded by people that intimidate you because they are so freaking awesome. Like if I'm in a band, say I'm a singer, and then there's a drummer, and I'm like, I could play drums better than this person. Like I could do this better. That's a problem. I want to be in a band with a guy who I go, dude, like you're way better than me for this thing. Like this is awesome, and I can't believe I get to play with this guitar player, and believe I get to work with this producer. Like technology is amazing. The fact that you can create alone in a room, that's great. Because if it was 20 years ago, will you be on a 4-track, like trying, it's, like that's great. And and then but then it can get into a comfort thing where you're not dealing with any human beings, and that's why we're here on earth, to deal with each other and get better at that and inspire each other and learn from each other and all of that. Like that I feel is the main lesson here, right? So if someone being able to create on their own enables them to create something that can now open the whole world to them, that's awesome. But there's also that danger of like, yeah, you're alone, and people can get really comfortable and also be in fear. It's like the kid shredding in the basement playing Eruption sitting on his bed. It's like, okay, that's cool, but how are you at showing up on time for the gig? How are you at standing on a stage in front of people? How are you at communicating with other people? Like you've got to be able to do all of that. So it's just a double-edged, but not a double-edged sword,
Well,
but again, technology's great. Like it's like if all we did was talk like this to people, but we never were like, hey, and like gave a hug to somebody or shook somebody's hand. It's just got to keep an eye on it. You know what I mean?
you need the human touch. Now, just to clarify, what I was saying, I'm playing live shows by myself. Like I needed
Right.
Parker and everybody
Right.
to make the record. I wasn't creating it all myself, but
Yeah.
I was performing alone on stage, and that's not good. Like I need people. I need a better element. So we'll get there. Like technically, I can do everything I need to do, so it's fine. Now we just got to execute it in a better way.
Oh, yeah. And again, it's great that technology would allow some to go perform, because otherwise you'd be like, James Taylor up there with an acoustic and nothing else. But like you can play tracks behind you. You can use a looper. You can, there's all these things you can do. So it's awesome. It's
Now,
awesome. But
to train for me every Saturday. I've been running karaoke at the local bar, but once in a while I'll sing my own song with the vocals muted and the video playing, and it's fun
nice.
and it's a good
Yeah.
rehearsal. And I'm a better
Yeah.
singer now from singing every week, stay in my range, practice stuff, and get paid on the side. So that's been a weird way to kind of get ready to be a lead singer and learn better crowd interactions and whatnot. So, but
Yeah.
so hey man, I really appreciate you coming on here and talking to me and my audience about what you got to tell us. And I know you have a lot of really good stories and experience. So I definitely want to encourage people that want to learn more about Matt and the coaching he offers to visit the website mattstarcoaching.com, which we'll put down here. If there's any other tidbits or anything you want to say to anyone or tell us about something coming up, and also if you could just tell us some of the bands you played in. I didn't really go into that at all. I'd love to tell my audience a bit more about what you've done.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, played with Ace Frehley for many years, about 10 years on and off, Mr. Big. George Lynch from Dokken, Joe Lynn Turner, one of my favorite singers from Rainbow, Michael DeBars, Kevin DeBro from Quiet Riot. I had different projects and bands, guys from Guns N' Roses like Gilby Clarke or Dizzy Reed. Started a band called Hookers and Blow many years ago with Alex Grossi and Dizzy, and they're still rocking it. But yeah, a lot of different stuff, rock and roll. I've had the good fortune to play with people that I grew up listening to, which I think is why I end up being a good fit for them. But like then also the kid in me is like, oh my God, we're playing the same song we were playing when we were 12 in our room, imagining we were playing with the guy, and then you're actually playing with the guy. So
That's sick.
it's been cool.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. What were you in the Hollywood Vampires too? Was that
Nope, not
was that
yet.
one?
But no, it wasn't. So that's Alice and Joe
Okay.
Perry and Johnny Depp, and then Glenn Sobel from Alice's
Okay.
band, and Tommy Hendrickson, and who else is in there? Oh, and Chris Wise.
And I
And
know like there used to be
I'm
such a
sorry.
great like I lived in LA for a while, so there's a great scene at the House of Blues. Just like there was always some sort of weird events, like the drummer. Like I went to that Who one, the John Entwistle one
Yeah,
that you were playing at. 'Cause I remember seeing you there, and I'm just there's always and that Nam they have like the Randy Rhodes jam, the Dimebag jams, and all that stuff. Like there's such a
yeah.
community and that people don't even know about. Like I wouldn't have known that even happened until I moved out there and was trying to figure it all out. It's so interesting, just the all the players. Like I'm friends with Randy Cook too. Do you know Randy, drummer?
Yeah, I love Randy.
He's
He's
one of
my
my
hot dog buddy. We go to
I love
Carney's on Sunset and get hot dogs.
Well, give him a hug for me. I love that guy. So
I
that's
will.
cool, man. There's so many good people. And like I've been talking to my friend Jay about, the mastering and just trying to understand what I need to do and who are the people that can help. I was talking shit to my friend Steve yesterday about the Leafs game because he's in Boston, but I haven't heard back from him because he was watching the Nets game. So we'll see where that comes. But yeah, it was a crazy hockey game last night. We finally beat Boston.
Congratulations. Oh, I did a session in Montreal
Yeah,
with a band called Modern Evolve. And so, okay, I'm gonna go up there and they're like, we're messaging. They're like, is that or anything that you need? Like, we got your room, we got your flight. Do you need anything? I said, hockey game would be nice. And he writes back, he goes, are you serious? I go, oh, I'm dead serious, dude. So the Canadians and the Bruins were playing that night
beautiful.
in Montreal. We did the session, went to the thing, just so electric. I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, so I used to see the Hartford Whalers with Gordie Howe and everything. So I'm like, I grew up on hockey, and I've recently gotten back into it in the last few years. Amazing game. I'm sorry to say the Bruins won. It was a great game though, and just it was awesome. So it was such a killer experience, and I love Canadians. I played with a lot of guys like Phil X and all these. Every
That's cool.
Canadian, like you're super talented. Todd Kearns, all these guys like Brent Fitz, super talented, super nice. All of them.
So yeah, I got my Van Halen shirt on from the show in Toronto,
Yeah,
1990.
I like that shirt.
It was like 93 or something. Tour dates. That was the
Yeah,
Unlawful Carnal Knowledge tour with a 316 live solo, and I used to
right.
jam that out. Anyway, awesome to talk to you, Matt. I'll let you know when it's
Yeah,
going to be posting. We'll catch up in the future on email or something. But you have a wonderful rest of the spring and summer, and I hope you get some great shows. If you're playing in Canada, be sure to let me know. We'll try to come see it.
I will for sure. It's great to see you, man. Thanks for chatting.
I'm sure I'll be out in LA at some point, so we'll look you up. All right.